Fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to another episode of the Dirty Birds and Brews podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Knight, at Falcoholic Kevin on Twitter, here to bring you guys some initial thoughts, some early takeaways from the start of Falcons free agency. And yes, I was planning to get you guys these thoughts over the weekend. I was planning to record on Friday, but what ended up happening was, as you can see, my microphone stopped working while I was traveling. So that I was glad that, a Trey Hendrickson trade or something crazy didn't happen. Although, the Falcons did make some moves that were nice to see. That was a little bit jarring. So I apologize for the late arrival of this particular recording, but we're going to get that fixed. We're going to get that all taken care of here very shortly. But in the meantime, I'm borrowing my wife's also nice microphone. I hope it's not too jarring. It's the same brand. It's a pretty good microphone. I do recommend it to people getting started in podcasting. This isn't an ad, so hey, HyperX, if you want to hit me up with that, let me know. But guys, we're going to get into some of these initial signings for the Falcons, give you guys kind of my quick thoughts. We will have, of course, Trayshawn on very soon to get into more detail about these signings and how they impact the draft and things like that. Just wanted to get you guys my quick thoughts that I've actually been stewing on for a long time now, so they're more like quick thoughts that have had a few days to sort of percolate. Throw in a brief nugget about the Kirk Cousins situation, take my victory lap, right? But other than that, we will have much more detailed stuff coming very, very soon. So thank you guys for your patience. Apologize again for the technical difficulties. First it was Trayshawn's microphone, and equipment breaking down. Now it's my turn, but we do appreciate everyone's patience. And again, fun week to start, right? A lot of small to medium moves, which was kind of what I was expecting to see, to be honest. Not terribly shocked by this approach. Definitely some surprises, some things that I wasn't expecting. If you listen to my bold predictions, you'll know that I was wrong about some of those things and right about others, which is usually how those things go, right? You just don't want to be wrong about everything. But we're going to dive into that in just a second. Real quick, I want to get you guys a word from our sponsor, BetOnline, because March Madness is here. The brackets were just announced, and BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for betting on all the madness, whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor. BetOnline's your ultimate game day companion with the largest selection of odds on everything from college basketball, obviously, to a $200,000 bracket contest. BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every Cinderella story to every hat trick, BetOnline's got you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. And when you sign up, make sure to use our promo code. It's BELIEVE, BLEAV, like Believe Podcast Network, to get access to the latest promotions. And I know they got lots of fun stuff going on right now, like I said, with the March Madness going. So make sure to check it out, guys. It's betonline.ag, and that's where the game starts, right? So check it out. Thanks again to BetOnline for sponsoring today's episode. All right, so getting to the free agency moves, Falcons free agency. It was, a slow start. I know the first day I was tweeting, from the slopes. We squeezed in a couple final days before the weather. I believe when we left, it was 65 in the parking lot up in Lake Placid. So warm, very, very warm. One of the warmest days I've ever skied. But, obviously the Falcons didn't move very quickly to start, and I didn't really expect them to, right? I mean, I think that this is a team that didn't really have money, was going to have to create space to do anything, and we're probably trying to negotiate around a couple of their own deals. But, for starters, the Falcons, they brought back a lot of their own guys, which I kind of thought we would see. And there were also a couple other surprising departures. So let's start with Drew Dahlman signing with the Bears for $14 million a year. That is closer to sort of what I expected Grady would be what Jake Matthews. Wow. So many. No, none of those players. I'm looking at a free agent moves list, and those names keep popping into my head. Drew Dahlman signed for $14 million a year with the Chicago Bears for $14 million per. That's right. That's a little bit more than I initially expected him to sign for, but I figured the Falcons would be willing to go up to $15 million for him. They were not, and according to rumors, they really weren't that interested in matching any sort of high contract for Dahlman. And I will have more sort of long-term thoughts on that in combination with some other things that haven't happened yet, that I'll get into probably in another episode, just because I'm going to try to make this a quick hitter for you guys, get this out as quick as I can now that I'm back home. But Dahlman exiting obviously creates a big hole at center for the Falcons. Conversely, the Falcons did actually tender Ryan Nuzul with the right of first refusal tender. They still, I believe, have not announced that. We had to find out 90 minutes after the deadline through the NFL's official transaction report. That's not really cool. Everybody else was announcing their RFA tenders. I'm not sure why the Falcons didn't do it. That's why I said at 4:10, it looks like they haven't tendered him, because the deadline to tender him was 4 p.m. On the start of free agency, right? And we hadn't seen any move. So I thought they didn't tender him, which obviously was a big shock. Apparently they did and just didn't say anything. Weird, considering that he's the starter at this point. So, I'm guessing it just slipped through the cracks that they forgot to leak it or tell someone about it. We had to find out through some other means. So, a little bit odd there, but happy to see Ryan Nuzul back. Do of course like Nuzul. I think he's got some potential, obviously, and I'm excited to see, if he does actually get an opportunity to start, or do they bring in someone else? But happy to see Nuzul back. So the Falcons do have a center under contract, so we'll see how that plays out. But in terms of other guys they brought back, the other big things, obviously the team did decide to cut Grady Jarrett. That was always a possibility. I mean, the $16 million in savings was the biggest single move they could make with minimal dead cap, because it's the final year of the deal here. I always expected the Falcons were going to just work something out with him. It seems like Grady thought they were going to as well, but given what he signed for with the Bears, I believe, and this is just speculation, this isn't sourced, it seems like Grady thought that they were going to be asking him to take a pay cut down to 13, 14 million, and I think the Falcons were probably asking him to take a pay cut down under 10, and obviously the two sides disagreed about that, and that was probably the kicker there. I love Grady Jarrett. I'm really upset that he's gone. At the same time, I think what the Bears are paying for him is probably an overpay. Now, there's also a chance that he just gets healthier and has a really graceful end of his career. I certainly hope that for him. I do think what the Bears paid is close to prime value for him, assuming he bounces back completely. And I hope that he does. Honestly. But I don't blame the Falcons for not wanting to pay that amount. I think that is probably too much. And they're not in a position where they can really overpay at this point, because they already overpaid for someone at the top of this free agent list, right? So that's sort of where we are with that. But otherwise, not really any major departures. I think the other free agents that we were watching from Atlanta, we're obviously Justin Simmons and Matt Judon haven't signed. I suspect they won't for a while still. But I think pretty much everyone that I was sort of wanting to see return, other than Grady Jarrett and Drew Dahlman, has returned. Mike Hughes re-signed on a deal, I believe approximately $6 million per. And that's a great deal for him if he plays like last year. If he's a cornerback too, that's a bargain. So I certainly think that's a good move. The Falcons don't have to go find another outside starting corner in the draft now. They can really focus on the slot, which is completely wide open at this point, since D'Alford was not tendered and has not re-signed at this stage. Still could happen, obviously. All the reserve offensive linemen have returned. Storm Norton, the swing tackle, love that. Elijah Wilkinson and Kyle Hinton on the interior, as well as Nuzul, who we already mentioned. Love to see that. And then, of course, Kaderil Hodge, core special teamer and depth receiver, he is returned as well. Love to see that. Liam McCullough, the long snapper, also. How could I forget the Highlander? Congrats to him re-signing here as well for I believe a 4-year deal. Congrats to him. So, I think most of those guys have returned for Atlanta. Now, in terms of outside signings, there's a couple that are notable, I would say. The Falcons did go out and give, sort of mid-level contracts to linebacker Divine Diablo, who has an amazing name, one of the best in the NFL. Sort of a 2-year deal here to be sort of discount Jamie Sherwood. They're paying him about half what Jamie Sherwood ended up getting, right? And he's kind of a similar player, obviously not as established, not doesn't have the accolades, doesn't have the necessarily the high end play, but Diablo I think is very much an upside signing. I think he's very intriguing. He's a guy I really liked in the draft as like a sort of box defending safety. He's moved to linebacker. I haven't watched a ton of him since he came to the NFL. From what PFF says, he's very bad in coverage, which, well, not bad, just sort of like below average in coverage. And I just kind of find that hard to believe given what I know about him. And PFF's coverage grading is very poor, in my opinion. But, I'll have to watch more of him. But I do think he's a guy that could be someone very interesting in this defense. Much more of a like run and chase athletic linebacker type that the Falcons just didn't have on the roster when Trey Anderson was sidelined, which unfortunately was most of last year. So I think he's fun to add to this room to give them a coverage option, a third down option, more of an athletic option at linebacker to compete probably with Trey Anderson for a starting job there. Alongside Caden Ellis. It's possible all three could play in certain packages. We could see Diablo be sort of what we thought maybe DeMarco Helms would be, although DeMarco Helms is hopefully coming back healthy, and it'd be nice to see him. But that was the first signing we heard about. We also heard a one-year deal for edge rusher Leonard Floyd, who had 8.5 sacks last year, and that's obviously more than anyone on the Falcons had. So, that's great to see. He was also playing on a much better defensive line, and he'll be 33. So, Floyd is definitely on the tail end of his career. The one-year deal sort of signifies that. It's up to $10 million. I think ideally Floyd is like your third pass rusher, and would be a really good third pass rusher. For the Falcons, he's probably going to be their number 2. And I just hope that he has one more good year left in him. I do like Floyd. I think he's shown that he is, funny enough, I think he was a guy that kind of reminded me a little bit of Lorenzo Carter. But I think Floyd has had the drastically better career than Lorenzo Carter, so it's kind of funny. I think Floyd, I thought he did a good job. I think that, he's a guy that Falcons are going to need to play at a high level as one of their starters. And, we'll see how it goes. But I think at this point, he's probably your pass rush specialist. I think he's someone that you probably want, again, being like a third down maven. So this is a guy that's probably going to be part of a rotation and not like a starting every down type of edge rusher. But hopefully the Falcons can come up with something else to help him out also, because I don't think you want, Floyd playing tons of snaps. You want to keep him fresh. I think the ideal role for him would be sort of like, another veteran pass rusher that came Dwight Freeney, right? Someone who could come in, can coach up your young pass rushers, can provide that veteran leadership, that playoff experience, that finishing, and, just kind of round out your room. But you don't want to over rely on that guy to carry your pass rush. And unfortunately, we know the Falcons are probably going to do that. But, hopefully that they'll allow him to kind of play a more rotational role where I think he can still be really good in that role. So I'm excited about that one. I think that's a necessary addition because that edge room was looking quite, dicey, extremely dicey to be polite, I guess. And then later on, we heard about the Falcons bringing in defensive tackle Morgan Fox, who is a guy I've always liked. I've sort of pushed for signing him in the past. I think he's a productive rotational interior player. He's not going to break the bank. He's good against the run and the pass. He's a good pass rusher. Sort of a no-nonsense rotational guy. I like it. I think he's going to play a role. I think he'll be someone that fans really like. I think he'll be productive. He's probably going to be a guy that everyone's going to be clamoring to get more snaps, and I think his best role is like he's going to be a rotational guy. He's going to rush the passer some, provide some other stuff. But he is, I think he's a good player, so I'm excited to have him here in Atlanta finally after clamoring for him a couple times throughout the years. And then a couple of other re-signings that I'll just touch on. We got Taquan Graham back. The Falcons let Eddie Goldman and Grady Jarrett walk. They did bring Taquan Graham back, who, again, kind of had his career derailed by a pretty severe injury. And he, along with kind of everyone else in the D-line room, had a down year in 2024. I think this is a sign that the Falcons probably think that their D-line is not as... And the fact that they haven't cut David Onyemata yet, again, that's interesting. I think this is a sign that the Falcons kind of think that they screwed up big time with the coaching last year. They fired the defensive line coach and Jimmy Lake. The scheme didn't work. Everyone played poorly, basically. I think this might be sort of an admitting that, okay, we screwed up how we played this last year. I think these players are still good or at least intriguing enough to sort of build around. Let's just reset, get some better coaching in here, get a better scheme in here, and we think these guys can bounce back. I hope they're right, because that would be the most cost-effective way to do this, where you're also not blowing your draft picks. And I think it would be great if Taquan Graham could prove himself as an NFL starter, and that would certainly help Terry Fontenot's draft record if he could turn into something this year for the Falcons. Other notable ones that I'll touch on real quick. Cornerback Mike Ford returns. He spent the last couple years elsewhere in the NFL. Spent 2022 in Atlanta. Was like one of the Falcons' best special teamers. Has consistently been a very good gunner on special teams. I know. I'll defer to Trayshawn on the Ford signing because he is the special team sommelier. I thought he's always been a good special teamer. I won't claim to have watched the special teams film from 2024. Of another team. I'm just not that much of a sicko, but I think, Mike Ford and Kadarius Hodge as your gunners, it could be the best gunner duo in the NFL. And I think the Falcons really do think they can find an edge with their special teams that hasn't really materialized yet, but I think they clearly want that to be the case. So Keith Taylor, the cornerback, also comes over from the Chiefs, and he was another core special teams guy. So again, I think that they're trying to fill out their depth chart, the lower parts of the depth chart, with really good special teams players. And again, I think Taylor and Ford can play a little defense. I don't think these are guys you would ever want starting, long term. But if they had to play a little defense, it's okay. Other notable stuff before we get into just a little bit of commentary here. Jake Matthews was actually extended, which I mentioned as being a possibility. I figured it would be McGarry that was extended because he's younger and is in the final year of his deal now. The fact that Matthews was the one they extended shows you that Matthews has no intention of retiring soon, which I think should have been obvious. But, Matthews has always been a good left tackle. He peaked as I would say arguably a top 5, elite left tackle earlier in his career. I think now he's more like a 10, right around 10th, 11th, 12th, I would say, which is a good left tackle. But again, with a left-handed quarterback coming in, it's possible that the Falcons have sort of said, look, Jake Matthews is a good enough left tackle, and if more importance is going to be placed on right tackle going forward, if Matthews sort of does, continue to slowly decline, but he's still good, we're fine with that. We're gonna just keep that stable, keep that left side where it is, and maybe be looking at right tackle getting an upgrade going forward, which I think the fact that McGarry has not received an extension, it's not necessarily meaningful yet. So let me preface it with that. It's still quite early in free agency, and there's plenty of time for the Falcons to do an extension with McGarry. I still think that it's more likely than not that they will, because I think, again, he's not the best pass protector, but he's a good right tackle. And, I don't know that you want to open up that can of worms by having him be a free agent next year. But if the Falcons don't extend McGarry, first of all, it means that, they're planning to swing big at right tackle next year. That will probably be their where they're going to go in the draft next year if they don't, re-sign or extend McGarry at this point. It could also, I think, in the larger context, be taken as this is sort of our pivot to pass protection as our main focus. And we want guys, obviously, that can run block, but we're going to be emphasizing the pass pro more than we did under the previous coaching staff. And I think a guy like Chris Lindstrom obviously is great at both, which is lovely. I think so far Bergeron has been a better pass protector than run blocker, so I think they're fine with the way that's been developing. Matthews has always been a better pass protector, and the fact that they let Dahlman walk as an elite run blocker but kind of an average pass protector, I think could be sort of a tacit acknowledgement that they're okay with. They're going to be they could potentially be pivoting to a more pass heavy pass protection focus on the offensive line. Which, look, if you've got Michael Penix and you're going for this high-flying passing game, and you've got a running back in Bijan Robinson who, let's be honest, does erase offensive line mistakes to some extent. Obviously he's better with a better O-line, but maybe the pass protection is the most important thing for this team going forward. And if Bijan is good enough to not need an elite offensive line to pave the way for him, then, that could be helpful going forward. I think it's very interesting in the context of they let Drew Dahlman walk for more than I initially thought he would get, but not that much more. And they haven't extended McGarry, which is one of their best ways to create cap space at this point if they wanted to commit to him for a few more years. They haven't done either of those things, but they did extend Jake Matthews, who was the oldest of the bunch, but by far the best pass protector of the three. This is just putting the pieces together here. So, I mean, we'll see. I also think, my quiet, I don't know if I wouldn't say it's a conspiracy theory, but my sort of long-term outlook of maybe the Falcons are going to move Bergeron back to tackle at some point, have Bergeron play right tackle if McGarry moves on. I still think that's a slight possibility of something that could be percolating with this team. So maybe instead of needing to take a tackle, let's say the ideal situation happens, this team bounces back, gets to the playoffs, they're picking in the mid to late 20s and not, early. Getting a starting tackle is going to be kind of hard in that range. Getting a starting interior player, if you're moving Bergeron to tackle, that may be a lot easier to pull off. Might be significantly easier to pull off. So, I do expect that the Falcons would love to take a developmental tackle. We know they've been talking to some, according to reports. So I still think that's very much on the table, but they'll need extra picks to be able to accomplish that. I think sort of the writing might be on the wall that this is going to be a pass-focused team with a great running back, right? Instead of like a run-focused team that's going to build all around two running backs, the Falcons may become a pass-heavy team with a great running back that uses Bijan sort of as a, Christian McCaffrey-esque player that's going to also catch a lot of passes and be an extension of the passing game, as well as carrying the load on the ground and sort of being able to overcome maybe an offensive line that's a little more focused towards the pass. So I'm curious about that. But, takeaway messages, I think this is a fine start. This isn't going to move anyone that was wanting more to happen. I still think like big moves were not likely to happen. The Falcons are not a team that's been known to overpay or really get into bidding wars on much stuff. They've sort of tried to stay out of that. So this is pretty expected. I don't think they're done by any means. I think they will be making more moves, especially around before, after the draft, that sort of thing. And this team made arguably two of their biggest free agency moves after training camp, even basically, sort of towards the end of the preseason. So anything can happen along the way, but as of right now, a little bit quiet, not terribly surprised. But I think they did sort of shore up some areas that could have become problems. Like outside corner, they got Mike Hughes back. They added a linebacker. They couldn't get Sherwood. I know they really wanted Sherwood, but they did have a backup plan. Went for Divine Diablo, who doesn't have the production, but you do get a discount. And I think the potential with Diablo is very, very high. So that's interesting. You get a contributing edge rusher in Leonard Floyd, who's also not going to break the bank. Doesn't require a trade or huge asset allocation there. And I think you re-sign all your offensive line depth that helped, that was very important for you last year when you had to play guys. So I think this is looking okay so far. Now we have to see how they navigate the Kirk Cousins situation, which obviously is a little bit of the elephant in the room here. They do keep him, so thank you. You can send your flowers, to me on Twitter, for standing strong on that. We'll see if the other half of my prediction, which is that they eventually trade him, will come true. But I think for now they do keep him. So again, like I said on the show, Terry Fontenot, hats off. You did the right thing. You did the right business decision, even though it's hard, and a lot of people were like, "Why the heck are they going to do this? Are they going to do?" Held firm, made the right decision. For that, you get props. Like I said, that's what I would have done. I think that's what they needed to do for many reasons, not just business reasons, but NFL PR reasons, player relations reasons. You can't let Kirk Cousins bully you, and they didn't. So good for them. But yeah, that's sort of where we're at. So. that's the initial thoughts. We'll have a lot more coming on this, as of course, as things go on and how the draft impacts things as well. But thank you guys for watching. I'm Kevin Knight at Falcoholic Kevin. Please like and subscribe if you haven't done that already. Both of those really help us out. And yeah, we will be back on Wednesday with more Falcoholic Live. We'll be back with Trayshawn real soon as well. And I'll have another post-free agency mock draft coming your way real soon. I know guys are excited about that. Maybe with some spicy trades as well. I know we've all been looking forward to that. So until next time, guys, thank you so much for watching the Dirty Birds and Brews podcast. Thanks again to Bet Online for sponsoring tonight's episode. We'll see you next time. Have a great day.